Thanks again for coming. When Steve was talking about missing the ship and everything, I just remembered a few things I thought that it would be very interesting to say. Since in the past 10, 11 years that I have the privilege of traveling with cruise ships, um, the reason I'm saying this thing, by no way it's advertising to take their side trips now. There is no more side trips. You're going home. But because I'm so familiar and I used to give destination lectures in a lot of places that we went, one of the things that people think they can save money a little bit in some of those third world countries, if you take a taxi or something, believe me, you might miss the ship because as experienced as I am in South America, I insisted I wanted to see if the taxi driver has the spare tire. I wanted, they said, "Do you have a spare tire?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I want to see that." He showed me the spare tire. We got the thing, we went in there. Guess what? He didn't have a jack. Luckily, it was just right outside the town. We could take another taxi back. We wouldn't have been missed it. I have seen people coming 3 days later, so messed up. They said we didn't even have a toothbrush. We didn't have anything. Through the Andes mountain, we had to take a flight to come to the other side of Chile. So it is really beneficial. I know that it's a little higher price, but every penny of it is worth it. It's just a recommendation. Another thing I wanted to mention about the people that they sign for mailing books. I emailed my agent those who have paid. Yours would be on the way today. The ones that they didn't, your book would be in the mail. I'm very, very proud of my journey book and the other ones as well because they are looking at uh, possibly making a movie out of it. And I had an old friend, and he had problem. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Well, Bill, finally, with all of the tests that we made, can everybody hear me? With all of the tests that we made, we can figure your problem. That's nothing. But you have to give half of your sex life." And he said, "Which half I'm supposed to give up, doctor? Thinking about it or talking about it?" Just thinking about it is really, or talking about it makes me happy. Um, how many Aussies are here today, please? By show of hand, any Aussies? Oh my God, then I have to watch my P's and Q's, huh? What are P's and Q's? What has to do anything with this speech? Well, Australia is a really interesting and fascinating country, and as a matter of fact, it's the only country in the world that they call it a continent as well. It is the largest island in the world, and size wise, it is amazingly large. It's about twice as big as Europe and almost 48 inland states of United States. It is extremely, extremely large, but most of it is arid, and the population is about 21 million or so, and the 21 million, considering divided to the square miles, is the least populated country in the world because there is about one person for every 1.6 square, 1.32 square miles. That is amazing. The country is divided to 6 or 7. I will show you on the next picture. There's a smaller island. Those of you who traveled, it's called Tasmania. And New Zealand is almost the same thing. If you can see, I didn't have this picture to show. The South North Island, South Island, there's the Stewart Island, that little tiny one at the bottom is the same way. This is Tasmania, which it's not small. The northeast part of the country sees good amount of rain, and these are the territories or states as it's divided. But it gets pretty hot, and sometimes rain falls, or they have quite a lot of problem with fire, because it's really the forest fire in there, or because of the heat. Some places it's very difficult to control it. It takes a while, but the people of Aussies are so capable because they have learned, for the reason of isolation, because they're so far away from the other parts of the world. They have learned how to take care of themselves pretty well. So one of the things that is important is they turn those fires and any problem, flood and anything, as quickly as possible. Luckily, the rest of the international community helps them at times, but mostly I can say the credit goes to Aussies itself, because they are wonderful people in that regard. Their flag is very much like New Zealand flag, except they have a star at the bottom of Union Jack, and that shows their Commonwealth star. New Zealand doesn't have that star, but they have the Southern Cross the same way. And they are in culture and in many things very close to New Zealand. Holland America has an excellent, excellent trip from New Zealand, from Auckland to Sydney, and vice versa. So you can take it from one way, getting off at Australia, or take it at Australia and getting off in Sydney. It's a beautiful, beautiful trip. I recommend that 100%. The beauty of the land, the beauty of scenery, again, like any other place, is amazing. Except the places that they are arid, other places, the towns, these people have done a marvelous job of building a community that is just unimaginable. Very, very pretty. Um, they are, their transportation facilities are, I can say, the best in the world. If you are there, you can take, for instance, a day pass, which you can take the ferries, buses, trains, and everything for actually peanut. It's not that expensive. And there's just unimaginable beauty in every one of the big cities they have. Sydney is really a vibrant city, and it's called the most livable city in the world. But personally, I like Melbourne, because Melbourne is a lot more cultural city than other. Uh, Brisbane is another city. Just lately, I don't know whether you remember, lately they had a flood in there, that suddenly this river is very, very strange. The water comes up to a point up to 7 or 10 meter high. So that really is dangerous. But it goes back to normal in no time. Beautiful hotels everywhere you go, beautiful buildings. It's an amazing country to visit. I recommend 100%. Of course, sorry, not as good as New Zealand, but hey, the Kiwis are here. So I have two, three people in here. They are beautiful beaches. There are so many activities on their beaches. They can do surfing. 80% of the Aussie population lives within 50 miles of waters. So water activities are the most popular events for Aussies. They are extremely happy people, and they go high kayaking, they go water skiing, they go surfing, they go just swimming, taking their families all over the place. There and it's just water activities in Aussie are very popular, and their beaches are phenomenal. They are in some of the beaches, very famous beaches. They have citizenship ceremonies, and 400,000 people at one time. They can uh, in one of those 400,000 people in Christmas time. That's their celebration for the citizenship. Wear Santa hat with swimsuit, and it is cute. It really, because Aussies, whether they are male or female, they're very well built. Their equipment is very interesting to watch. I am talking about the boats. I'm talking about the. You folks are amazing. These are really fascinating. You can see that, of course, the heat helps to grab all of these people in there, because it's just amazing how the water activities are popular in there. Um, Sydney has many different islands around it. They're all interesting to go, but one of the I guess parts, or one of the things that when you talk about Australia you have to talk about are the indigenous natives in there, and those are the Aborigines. And as you can see, the color, the face of Aborigines are a bit different than any other section of the world. And they're really a lot darker. And they were in there, about um, 1 million Aborigines were in there before the Europeans immigrated there. And they believe in a lot of spiritual things. Many of the spiritual things that you don't work, you don't, do any of the things that we have to do too, but the government has to pay you anyway. So I'm just kidding. It, the reason I said it that way, because the Aboriginal problem is the main internal problem of Australia, and the country is trying very hard to satisfy them. But satisfying any kind of human being is kind of impossible. However, they are doing their best. And I will tell you a little bit as we go along what happened, because that was, again, just like New Zealand, the Dutch navigators found Australia first. The, except they didn't claim it. And luckily, Captain James Cook came later in 1800 and claimed it for Britain, and they made this area a place for prisoners. They made a place that with ships in about by 11 ships they brought 1,500 criminals, and these criminals that they brought, they were not really criminals. It could be as small as a petty theft or traffic violation. They brought them in there. Their life was very harsh, and because they moved in there, and then they saw what a beautiful land, prosperous, fertile farms and everything. This invited a lot of British people just slowly to go in there and keep coming. And when they came, like any other area. I was talking about the Polynesia. They came with guns and they came with all kind of power, and they pushed Aborigines farther out of the way, and they took their lands, and they couldn't do anything. Many of them found the most prosperous country because it came to through the gold era. It was just the word going that you can have land for nothing, gold. This brought a lot of British people over there, or some of the Europeans. However, with this, automatically brought a great deal of people that they do illicit drugs and alcohol, prostitution, illness. So they had their share of problems as along the way, plus plus the diseases that we said, plus it came to a point that there were the ratio of women to men was very bad, about 5 men for 1 woman. So the rape and the abuse of women at that time became amazingly popular, and it was a very difficult time for them. But the country changed with all of those things. To make it short, Aussies are so humor, they are so funny, and there is, as I said in my New Zealand lecture, Aussies and Kiwis constantly pick on each other and just make fun. I'm going to show so many funny things about their culture that it's very interesting to see. One of the things was, one time this Kiwi gentleman was sitting in a cafeteria and eating his scone and jam. This young big Aussie comes in there and just tried to pick up on him, and starts chewing gum and blowing the bubble, and he says, "You Kiwis eat the whole bread?" And the Kiwi didn't want to be bothered with that, and he just said, "Yep," and continued going. "Well, we don't in Australia." He said, "Why don't you?" He says, "We just eat inside the bread," again blowing a big bubble, "and we take the outside and the crust and everything, put them in the container, transfer them to scones, and send them to New Zealand." Again, the poor guy was trying to just eat his breakfast without having any problem. He just continued, "Oh, do you eat jam in New Zealand?" "Yep." I guess, "We don't in Australia. We only eat fresh fruit, and then we take the skin and the seeds, put them in the container, and make jam, send them to New Zealand." And finally, when his last bubble came in there, this Kiwi said, "Do you guys have sex in Australia?" And he said, "Hey, of course we do, old man." He said, "What do you do for the used condoms?" "We throw them away, of course." "We don't in Kiwi." "What do you do with them?" "We put them in the container, melt them down, making chewing gum, send it to Australia." Why do you think it's called Wrigley's? Another, this was Ayers Rock, is a very spiritual place for uh, Aborigines, but the tourists go in there. This is one of the most popular tourist area. They go all the way across the mountain and everything, and they are having problem because they are thinking that nobody should cross our land. There's just all kind of minor and major difficulties that the government has with the Aborigines. Some are legitimate, some are not. This instrument is one of the first musical instrument that Australians, the Aborigines had. They say that Aborigines lived from the Ice Age 50,000 years ago from Africa. But that's what the history book says. I have nothing to do with it. And this digidiro is a very interesting instrument, but they play unusual songs, unusual music with it. Those who know Yanni, in one of his concerts, he had one Aborigines play that in Royal Hall of England. It was amazing. But then music became a great deal. Music and sports in Australia are big. In the past several years that I have been with the cruise ship, what is so funny? There are a lot of alligators in there. And these musicians have to play and sort of put them to sleep so they won't be having problems. No, again, their advertising is phenomenally funny. And I have one at the end I'm going to show you because if anybody wants to shoot me, it was a cell phone advertising on their television. And if anybody wants to shoot me, I will go the other way. It's really an amazing advertising. But in the past 8 or 10 years that I've been traveling, I can say that 80% of the fabulous musicians in the ship have been Australians. You saw Ian Cooper. I mean, they are phenomenal. They are piano players. They are singers. It's very important in there. The buildings are awesome. It just has all kind of old style with the new style, and it's just amazing. If you want to have graffiti, you might have to do something that everybody would enjoy it. I mean, this is really interesting. They are churches, synagogues, Buddha. Australia is a melting pot of culture. The 20% of Aussies are foreign born, 40% of Aussies have mixed parents. So it is a melting, it is a cultural place, especially if you go to Melbourne. You see, this is a big casino in there. Shopping is the ladies, you want to go. The best places in Australia is just the mecca for shopping for ladies. As a custom, the market is everywhere, both in Australia and New Zealand. And big parks, this is there like Disneyland. It's just really phenomenal. Sydney has everything. It has two harbors that you can find museums, you can find best hotels, every facility you want right in your. And the tower, if you are in Sydney, make sure it's really funny because they charge about $38 or $39 to go up on the observation deck and see the tower. If you go to the restaurant and have a meal and sit down in a revolving restaurant, it's only $50. So, being me so cheap, I always go to the restaurant and make a meal out of it and take time. It's really beautiful. The town below it, it's fascinating as far as scenery. Um, Asians have been coming to Australia in great numbers. The Chinese restaurants, the Chinese associations, and everything is very big. Of course, you can have in the Chinese New Year behind the Chinese dragon, or Italians, or Greeks, or there is there is about 200 different groups in there that it makes Australia really very interesting. Everywhere There is cafes, restaurants, and the food and the wine in Australia is absolutely out of this world. Lately, they have award-winning wines like New Zealand did. Of course, they have become second. You know, this is a Greek pastry shop. Oh my God! Of course, our last night in there, that dessert extravaganza make everything look like nothing. But you can find anything you want in Australia with any culture. This river, it's absolutely breathtaking to take some time to walk, to go to the restaurants and enjoy. And at night, they have big towers, they have flames going out. It is fascinating. They have These are the ferries that they take you to any of those islands. They have those hop on buses. Every facility for tourists that you can think of is in. Late in the past several years, the opera, the Sydney Opera, has been the real icon of Australia, and it is beautiful. You have to make a stop in uh, that opera because it's amazing building, and the colors, and every night they change the colors with lighting and everything right by the big bridge. There's another walking trip that you can go across that bridge all the way. You can see people on top there walking. It is a little scary but and windy, but it's an amazing thing. Just a beautiful place to explore. New Year and other occasions, their fireworks on that bridge, it just would take your breath away. They are really, and of course, the wild animals. This is one other difference between Australia and New Zealand. We don't have any predators in New Zealand. You would get the biggest fine if you even bring a small snake to New Zealand, while Australia is really a land for all of the. They just love uh, vicious animals. You can see there are many of them. Well, some eats you one way, the other one is the other way. I mean, they are unusual creatures there. It's just interesting. Australia is like no other place. Of course, the koala bear is definitely symbol of Australia, and we had quite a few golfers in here, didn't we? The kangaroos are everywhere. Just instead of hitting the green, you might just hit a kangaroo in there. The undersea life is fascinating there in Crane, Cairns, and other places. The reefs are absolutely breathtaking. The kind of fish, the color of fish, the kind of the. I cannot believe it's just a picture. Um, get this, then I would go back with my talk. Sports. Australians are sport mad. They really are, because considering considering 21 million, 6 million some are registered in active sports activities. And Australia has great swimmers, everybody heard, and they have a lot of other things that no other country has. Like they invented a lot of things. I'm going to read the list of the inventions they had, And because, as I said, since they were so much far away from everything, they had to be self-sufficient. But before we go there, I have to tell you another Aussie incident, that this blind man was in the bus stop with a couple and 9 children. And when the bus came, the bus only had enough space for 10 people. So the 9 children and the wife got on, and the Aussie blind and the father had to walk. As they were walking, and this poor blind had to use his walking stick, that noise that he made, tick, 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 made the other guy really upset. He said, "What is wrong with you? This is driving me crazy, mate. You should put a little rubber at the end of this stick." And he says, "Hey, who's talking about? If you would put a little rubber at the end of your stick, mate, we both would be riding on the bus." I was in Sydney. I had a cut in my finger, and it was even with Holland America. And I thought that I'm not going to take a chance, because if it infects or anything, being at sea, it's not going to be good. So I went to a doctor, and I just thought that they would see and put some whatever medication is necessary, so I feel comfortable. Here I am in the nurse's uh, in the doctor's office. The nurse takes my heartbeat and pulse and everything for that cut. So as we were talking, she says, "Did you come here to die?" I said, "Why in the world you think that a small cut is going to kill me?" "No, no, no. I want to know if you came here to Sydney to die or yesterday." The pronunciation. One of the biggest event in Australia is the um, Australian Open in January. How many of you are tennis buffs? Have you watched tennis? All right. One thing in there, it brings a lot of international people in there. It gets really an important event. And uh, Roger Federer did some show in there that I'm going to show you. This was unbelievable. Those of you who either watch tennis or played tennis, if you see what happened in there, you won't believe your eyes. I'm going to show you this thing. It's a very short clip, and then we'll go on with my other thing. He did this thing with his jacket, shoes, and
No, but like, let me tell you about Hawkeye. I mean, that conversation I've had with so many people, I tell you. And what I usually try to do is like show them a little trick I do because everybody asks me about it, you know. So take the ball, put it on your head because it's way too sensitive. It's crazy. Can't believe talk about it. Put the bottle on your head. All right. Make sure you don't move, okay? You guys want to maybe get out of the way, but all right. Don't be nervous. No problem. Okay. Make sure you don't move, okay? You want me to show you one more? Okay. One more. Get the ball, Alex. All right, here, one more time.
isn't that amazing?
Take See you later, right? Okay, guys. What's next? That was good, right? Wow.
Can you believe the accuracy? I'm just jealous of the money he makes. Um, I'm going to say a few things about Aussie inventions. It's really very interesting to know. Um, in 1987, Australian developed a way for ice to be manufactured officially, allowing them to export meat to Great Britain on refrigerated ships. In 1906, the surf life-saving reel was designed so lifesavers could reach distressed swimmer with a rope attached to their vests. Of course, those swimmers were trying to go to New Zealand on Tasman. They couldn't make it. In 1929, Alfred Trigger built a pedal power radio as the communication for the Royal Flying Doctors Service. Australians were also responsible for more everyday inventions such as notepads 1902, aspirin 1915, the pacemaker 1926, penicillin 1940, the Hills Hoist clothesline 1946, the plastic disposable syringe 1949, the wine cask 1965, the bionic ear 1978, dual flush toilet flush 1980, anti-counterfeiting technology for banknotes, and long wearing contact lenses in 1999. As far as sports, this is what I just said, that um, they have a lot of national, international swimmers, and the number of I'm just trying to, okay, right here. There is more than 120 national and thousands of local, regional, and state sporting organizations. It's estimated 6.5 million people in Australia are registered sport participants. Not bad for a population just over 21 million. I'm gonna tell you one other things, and then I will show you that cell phone advertising. Of course, I'm going to do that the last if anybody wants to throw rotten tomatoes or anything. But this is their advert. They have such a humor feeling that it's unbelievable. I have to start it over. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Don't get jumpy, please. My God.
Are you ill?
I'm okay. Just a slight headache.
Oh, love, not again. Leonard speaking.
Yeah, it's Gavin. Yeah, hello, mate. Yeah, how are you? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, it's no problem. No, I'm just over at Betsy's. Yeah, everything's looking brilliant. Yeah, no, that should be fine. It's just a question of getting some, excuse me, It should be no problem at all. Yeah, no, we'll be there. Ooh, blimey.
The humor, they just really think that um, laughing is the best medicine for life, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of Down Under, and I'm learning a lot in my old age, and it's something that you can forget a lot. You can have pain and aggravation always going to be in life. How quick you can switch that off and how you can go on with life is something that I learned in Australia and in New Zealand. I will be at the other end. Those of you who want to get my books for the last time, and we will be more than happy to sign your name and get your money. And that's more important. And it will be on the way for your, by the time you get home, it probably be at home for you. Thanks again for attending my lecture. I hope it was good enough, worth of your time. I have one more lecture tomorrow, and then you will be ready to throw me overboard. Have a great day. Thank you very much.